Good evening, everyone. It's officially 7 o'clock, so I think it's a good time to get this presentation started. Thanks for joining us on this rainy evening on a Wednesday. For those I have not yet had the pleasure to meet, my name is Jason Sabino. I'm the Director of School Counseling here at Watchung Hills Regional High School. With us this evening, I'm thrilled to be here with our school counselors to welcome you all to this financial aid presentation. Just last week, we had our post-secondary planning night for students and parents for the class of 2025, where we spoke on a variety of aspects of students navigating the college application process, from their interest to their acceptance to the schools that they're fortunate to go to next year. Tonight, we are pleased to be joined by Mr. Doug Wilson from HESA. He's a HESA representative and also the Director of Financial Aid at Keene University. And he's going to review a variety of the aspects of the college financial aid process, including those who should apply for financial aid. My quick tip is most everyone. And speak to also the anticipated release of the FAFSA this upcoming December, and also his experience with the revisions from last year and anything else I'm sure that Doug feels is worth sharing with you all. It is important to note that this year, through the state of New Jersey, it is a graduation requirements for everyone in the class of 2025 through 2027 to complete the FAFSA or submit a waiver for an exemption for this requirement. We will be sending something out from our offices, from the school counseling offices, on how to complete this or notify us that you've completed this requirement when it gets closer to the actual release of the FAFSA in December. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me or a school counselor. I just want to stress that if you're not a parent of a current 12th grader on this call, there's still information on this call that you can definitely benefit from hearing twice, 3 times, or 4 times. Each year, I pick up a few more tips and insights into the process, coming up to 20 years now. So just a couple of housekeeping items. Obviously, we're here on Microsoft Teams webinar. There is a Q&A that you could ask questions, and we will review them at the end of the presentation and follow up with any questions you might have at the end of it that Doug maybe does not hit on, or that we can follow up with you individually if it's a more specific question related to you. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the school counseling portion of the website for later viewing. So if you have any questions or you feel the need to, not be able to take as much notes as you hope tonight, depending on where you are, just know this will be recorded and posted for either yourself or anybody else you may know on our website afterwards. That being said, if you have a question you don't want to have asked that you want to have on the recording, we will at the end be mindful of that and try to cancel the actual that portion of the recording so that you can ask questions during the end of the webinar. Without further ado, I'd like to formally introduce and welcome Mr. Doug Wilson.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Sabino, and thank you to the group. First, let me make sure I'm not muted. After 5 years, I never get this right, but thank you and good evening, everybody. It's great to see you virtually. One thing, I actually post a photo of an actual audience whenever I'm giving a virtual presentation, so that we have the illusion of a full house. But it's great to have you wherever you are. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the financial aid process. Now, if you're thinking ahead of time, I'm not going to qualify for anything, what's the point? Well, one, as Mr. Sabino mentioned, it's going to be a requirement for high school graduates going forward. And it's something that any family should consider because in addition to need-based aid, there may be also opportunities for non-need-based assistance where the FAFSA or other forms may be required. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but first of all, this program is brought to you by the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, HESA. I'll be using that acronym throughout the presentation. HESA works in conjunction with financial aid administrators such as myself to provide this information, including FAFSA workshops at some point when the FAFSA becomes available. Again, I'm not going to go over the details of the graduation requirement, as he also mentioned that there are waivers in some cases. Even if your student is not immediately thinking of attending high school, it's not a bad idea to complete the application to see what your student may be eligible for in federal, state, and institutional resources. The financial aid office, if you've ever visited a college campus, or if you will, it's a department that assists families in administering federal, state, and institutional funds that help fund your student's education. We go over all resources that are available to your student based upon your individual situations, whether it be for a semester, a year, or for the next 3 to 4 years. We also, some schools have a pot of institutional monies, some bigger than others, and they use that in conjunction with federal state funds in order to create a packaging award for eligible students, both by need and by merit. Financial aid comes from many sources, the biggest one being the federal government. There's also the individual states, New Jersey being one of them. The colleges and university, as I alluded to, have resources as well to help you pay for your child's education. And there are also outside sources. I'll be speaking about external scholarships a little later on in the presentation. There may be something available in your own backyard if any of you are part of a civic organization, or your employer may offer some sort of tuition remission program. That's something to look into starting now. Financial aid can be broken down into 4 basic types. The first 2 are gift aid, which are grants that are awarded based on financial need, based on federal and state formulas. Grants do not have to be repaid, nor do scholarships, which are based on merit more so than need. Merit can be academic, could be based on talents such as art, athletics, or community activity of that student. In addition to grants and scholarships and your own resources, some families may need to consider borrowing money to help pay for their education. The federal government, state of New Jersey, and many private lenders offer some sort of loan assistance to help pay for your child's education. I'll speak to about a couple of loan programs a little later in the presentation. In addition to loans and grants, if necessary, the concept of paying your way through college is not dead. Many students throughout the year actually work on campus or near campus in administrative and academic departments through hourly wages to pay for part of their education through federal or institutional work-study programs. If you've ever navigated, or if your student has ever navigated a college's website, including admissions, our suggestion is that you navigate to the financial aid site or admissions and look for something called a net price calculator, where if you have your FAFSA information or not, you can actually do a calculation to get an estimate of what your student might qualify for from federal, state, and even institutional assistance to pay for your students' direct costs being tuition and fees and room and board if they're planning to pay to live on campus. If you use the net price calculator, NPC, it'll be based on full-time tuition rates for whichever college your student is thinking of attending. I want to describe briefly some of the federal programs for which a student might qualify based on need. The most basic one is the federal Pell Grant. It used to be called the Basic Educational Opportunity Grant. The awards vary depending upon the family's strength or their ability to pay for the child's education, and it's based on a federal formula that's established by Congress. The maximum award for the current year, 2024-25, is $7,395 for those students of the highest need. Another federal grant that may be available at the student's campus is Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, SEOG. Depending on how much school's been allocated from the federal government, they can award up to $4,000 per year for undergraduate students. Some schools also participate in what's called the Teach Grant Program. If there are any aspiring teachers, your student, during their junior or senior year, they may qualify for a grant of up to $3,700 per year under the condition that after they graduate, or that within 8 years after they graduate from college, that they teach an in certain areas, in certain fields for a minimum of 3 to 4 years, depending upon what's on the written agreement. These are federal grants. And there are also some grants from the state of New Jersey. Might be a little hard to read. It's a little hard for me too, but I'm going to go through each grant type in a moment. To qualify for any state grants or scholarships, the student would first and foremost have to complete the FAFSA. For some students, they may have to complete an alternative application, which I'll speak about later on. Now, the flagship grant from the state of New Jersey is Tuition Aid Grant, or TAG. To qualify for TAG, in addition to financial need, which I alluded to earlier, the student has to file a FAFSA, or for certain students, the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid application. There's a citizenship requirement. Student has to be a U.S. citizen, or what's called an eligible non-citizen, or you're classified as a New Jersey Dreamer. The student has to be a resident of this state at least 1 year prior to the beginning of that upcoming semester to qualify for TAG or other state programs. With a few exceptions, the student has to be enrolled at least full-time for semester-based college. Usually that's 12 or more credits in an eligible degree program. In addition to that, the student has to meet the state's deadlines as far as FAFSA filing, and if they have to provide additional documents, they have to adhere to those deadlines in a timely manner. Now, as I said before, some state programs are available for full-time students. There are also part-time awards for New Jersey residents. If your student is starting at the county college level, there's a part-time tag, and also the Community College Opportunity Grant, CCOG, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, and also EOF. Speaking of which, the Educational Opportunity Fund, it's not a financial aid program per se, but it does offer financial assistance to students during the admissions process are determined to demonstrate educational and economically disadvantaged. And that's determined again during the admissions process. For more information about EOF, if you know somebody who might qualify for that program, many colleges have a standalone EOF office who specialize in the financial and also the academic assistance that the EOF program offers to its students so that they can obtain their college education. Another program from state of New Jersey is the Governor's Urban Scholarship, or GUS. If your student is within the top 5% of their graduating class at the end of their junior or senior year, they could qualify for up to $1,000 from Governor's Urban Scholarship. They attain at least a 3.0 GPA at the end of their junior year, and if they reside in one of the designated municipalities. Warren is not one of them, but if a student is a resident of one of the nearby municipalities listed, they may qualify for a Governor's Urban Scholarship. Going back to county college, if your student wants to start at the county college level, the state of New Jersey also offers NJ Stars for students who rank in the top 15% of their class at either the end of their junior or their senior year. To qualify for renewal of NJ Stars, student has to maintain a grade point average of 3.0 or higher while they're enrolled at their community college, and they're eligible for up to 5 semesters of full-time tuition from the NJ Stars program. If the student receives NJ Stars at the county college level and then transfers to a private or public institution in New Jersey in a 4-year degree program, there's a sister program called NJ Stars 2, where eligible students can receive up to $2,500 per year for up to 2 years for families whose taxable income is less than $250,000. And to maintain eligibility for NJ Stars 2 at the junior and senior level, the student would have to graduate with at least a 3.25, maintain a 3.25 grade point average. For students entering county colleges or vocational institutions within the state of New Jersey, there's another program available called NJ Gives, available to women and minority students, which pays up to $2,000 for the specific programs, some of which are listed on the slide: construction supervision, solar energy, or even architectural engineering technology. There's a separate application on the HESA website, which I'll allude to a little later on. I spoke earlier about the CCOG College County College Opportunity Grant. That started in New Jersey about 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Within the last 3 to 4 years, New Jersey opened its doors to additional funding for students at the junior or senior level in a 4-year college. Again, for the CCOG, the student will qualify for full tuition and fees at their local community college, tuition and fees minus any federal state grants for which they receive, if their family's income is $65,000 or less. Now, CCOG and another program, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, also have 3-tier programs. So tier 1, the family's income is less than $65,000, they're fully covered for tuition and fees. Tier 2, the family's adjusted gross income is between $65,001 and $80,000. CCOG will pay for 1/2 of the maximum award at the county college. And for families between $80,001 to $100,000, CCOG will pay for 1/3 of the maximum award at that county college. At the junior or senior level at a public institution in New Jersey, whether the student transfers or starts during the freshman year at the 4-year institution, New Jersey also has the Garden State Guarantee, which also has 3 tiers for families, again, whose income is $65,000 or less. They're fully covered by GSG for full-time enrollment, minus any federal or state grants for which they qualify. Tier 2 will pay up to $7,500. Excuse me, the family will pay no more than $7,500 per year, and GSG would pay the difference for incomes between $65,001 and $80,000. For families with incomes over $80,000 but no more than $100,000, that's tier 3. GSG will make sure that you don't pay more than $10,000 in approved tuition and fees. As I said, for this and other programs, you, the student, would have to be enrolled full-time for this program and make satisfactory academic progress. And GSG, just like CCOG, is available at public 4-year institutions within New Jersey. Some schools also participate in a 3+1 degree completion program, which is a collaboration between a county college and a 4-year public college within New Jersey. Basically, if the student completes 2 years at the public 2-year college, then transfers to a 4-year public college in New Jersey, they're assessed tuition and fees based on the county college amount during their 3rd year. And then during the 4th year, they're charged the full amount based on that 4-year college's tuition and fees. I mentioned before, some families may need to consider borrowing money if they don't have enough resources, grant scholarships, or their own money to pay for their expenses. Think of this as an investment toward your education. Some of you in the audience may have borrowed, so you can speak on that, or you may have known somebody who's borrowed a federal direct loan to pay for their education. When you, the student, receive any aid offer from your college, it may include a loan offer of up to $5,500 from the federal direct loan program, of which $3,500 is subsidized, meaning you're not paying any interest while you're in school. Remember, the loan is just an offer. You can choose to decline it or request a lesser amount if you have other resources, which would be great. Otherwise, this loan is available. Now, if you've done your research, families, you know that $5,500 in most cases is not going to cut as far as paying all of their tuition and fees. So after you've looked at other resources, there may be supplemental loans for which you, the parent, can consider borrowing on the student's behalf, or the student can borrow if they have good credit. If they don't have good credit, they might need a co-borrower. One such program, if you look to your far right, is the Federal Plus Loan, parent loan for undergraduate students. If you, mom or dad, decide to borrow some monies or maximum monies to help pay for your child's education, this loan is available at the federal level. I'll give you a couple of websites at the end, including studentaid.gov, where you'll complete the FAFSA, or if you, the parent, decide to apply for a PLUS loan, you can also log in at studentaid.gov to complete that process. State of New Jersey, as I mentioned a little earlier, also offers a loan program called the NJ Class Loan, which is available at fixed and variable rates depending upon your APR. And those are the federal and state programs. The best thing to do is to check with the individual colleges and universities to find out what supplemental or what institutional programs they have in order to supplement the existing awards. So now I'm going to jump into the application process. The biggest one, of course, would be completing the FAFSA at studentaid.gov. I'll talk a little bit about CSS profile, and then for any Dreamer students, there may be the New Jersey alternative application. Before we get into the FAFSA, some institutions, private institutions, mainly in New England, may require students to complete the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA, because depending upon the school, which may have large amounts of endowment money, they'll use a slightly different methodology than the federal one to award these institutional grants and scholarships. Some of the questions on the CSS profile are similar to the FAFSA, and it's customized based upon the college and based upon the programs for which your student is applying. There is a small fee to complete the application. Later, I'm going to talk about scholarships and scholarship scams. Basically, you want to avoid paying any costs to apply for any scholarships. Most legitimate agencies are not going to charge a fee. I can tell you the CSS profile, while they do charge a fee, this is a legitimate agency. If you need to complete the CSS profile, well, check with your college or university to find out whether it's required. You go to cssprofile.collegeboard.org to begin the process. Or if you have any questions, you can contact the Customer Support Center at 844-202-0524. Now for the big application, the main event. The free application for federal student aid is what students will be asked to complete in order to be considered for federal, state, and institutional funding. The FAFSA has to be completed prior to every school year, and usually it's available October 1st prior to this year, October 1st being next week. However, there have been some changes in the FAFSA starting this current year, and because of that, the Department of Education is actually opening the FAFSA process to a limited number of students at limited institutions starting October 1st. But for everybody else, the Department of Ed has indicated that the FAFSA will be available starting December 1st. And if you remember nothing else I tell you, remember this website, studentaid.gov, where you go to complete the FAFSA, sign a promissory note, or apply for a plus, and so many other things. As you complete the FAFSA, both you, the parent, and you, the student, under the federal formula, the processor will calculate what's called a student aid index, which is what colleges use to package each student for federal, state, and institutional assistance. The information on the 2025-26 FAFSA, in other words, for current high school seniors who will be starting college in the fall of 2025. As I said, that application will be available December 1st. When you're completing income information, the information will come from what's called the prior year. So in this case, it'll be tax year 2023. As you're completing the application, when I say you, I'm talking about the student and the parent. Everyone would have to consent to release their federal tax information to transfer directly onto the student's FAFSA. Otherwise, you will not be considered for federal or state assistance. Studentaid.gov is multifunctional. In addition to completing the FAFSA, you, the parent, and you, the student, would go to the site to create what's called an FSA ID, which will be your electronic signature to open a FAFSA, certify a FAFSA, and if you decide to apply for a PLUS, for example, you can e-sign that application at studentaid.gov. So even though the FAFSA is not available now, something that you, the parent, or you, the student, can do now is go to studentaid.gov and create the FSA ID so that you have your signature ready by the time the FAFSA is available. So that'll be one less thing that you'll need to complete. So who needs to complete the FSA ID, or who needs to have one? Of course, the student applicant and the parent. Parent for federal and state purposes would be the student's natural or adopted parent. So no legal guardians, no foster parents, no older siblings, has to be the natural or adoptive parent, or step parent if the student is living with one of their natural parents. Do both parents, if the student lives in a two-person household, need to apply for an FSA ID? Not necessarily. If the student's parents are married and they filed a joint tax return in 2023, only one parent is required to e-sign and provide consent on the FAFSA. Otherwise, if they filed separately, or if the parents are not married but living in the same household and you're providing both parents information, then each parent would have to contribute separately and provide separate consent with their own FSA ID. Now, there are some parents who do not have a social security number. Oh, let me just backtrack. To qualify for federal student aid, at the very least, the student has to meet certain citizenship requirements and have a social security number. That being said, a parent might not have a social security number. In the past, that parent would have to print a signature page and mail it to the federal processor. But starting this year, the federal government has modified the FSA ID process so that parents without social security numbers, they can also verify their identity and apply for an FSA ID account and be able to contribute and e-sign their student's FAFSA. I mentioned before, transferring information or providing consent to provide your federal tax information onto your student's FAFSA. Now that includes your student. Even if your student didn't file a tax return in 2023 because they weren't required or didn't work, they would still, when they log in, need to provide consent to transfer the FTI onto the FAFSA. And by them not filing, the FTI would actually be blank. But nevertheless, the student needs to provide consent. Likewise, for you, parent, if you or your spouse or partner did not file a federal tax return in 2023 or were not required, you still need to provide consent as you're completing the FAFSA. And again, if the parents are married and filed a joint tax return in 2023, only one parent is required to file it or to sign the FAFSA. As you're completing the FAFSA, both the student and the parent section, this is what you're going to expect to see when you're asked to provide consent in order to complete the FAFSA process. There was a time, like a year ago, where the student and the parent would pretty much have to be in the same session in order to complete the FAFSA. But starting this year, Students and parents can actually log in on separate browsers and separate sessions to begin the process and provide consent and provide their individual information. Basically, the student would start the section, invite the parent or parents. Once they're done, the parent can then log in from wherever and provide their consent, and their information will be linked to their student's FAFSA. As I mentioned before, for federal student aid, the student has to have a valid social security number. They have to be accepted or enrolled at an eligible program of study at an eligible college or university. So as your student is completing the FAFSA, one of the questions they're asked is whether or not they've completed high school or they will have completed high school. Make sure they do not check none of the above, because by checking none of the above, that disqualifies them from receiving any federal or state assistance. If they anticipate graduating or having a high school diploma or the equivalent by the beginning of fall of 2025, make sure they select high school diploma or GED or whatever the case may be. As I said before, the student has to be in an eligible degree or certificate program. There are also citizenship requirements I spoke about. The student has to be a U.S. citizen, natural born or naturalized, or what's called an eligible non-citizen, which includes permanent residents, refugees, parolees, or asylees, and other individuals. Now, you notice I did not include dreamers or undocumented students. They wouldn't qualify as eligible for federal student aid, nor can they complete the FAFSA. However, some states will allow students to apply for state funds, even if they're not an eligible non-citizen, but they are a dreamer in that particular state, and New Jersey is one of those states. So if you or if you know of somebody who qualifies as a New Jersey dreamer, the student, they'll be asked to complete the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid application for state funding. And later on, I'll give you the website in order to complete that application. What you see here is a summary of what the student and the parent can expect as they're completing the FAFSA. I'm surprised they fit it all on one screen, but the first section would be the student's demographic information after they've created their FSA ID. Some of their identifiers, name, social security number, date of birth will be auto-populated. Few things that they'll have to enter manually, including their college plans for the upcoming year, whether or not they will have a high school diploma, make sure they check yes. The student will have to provide consent. Again, even if they didn't file a 2023 tax return, they need to provide consent. If there are any circumstances that need to be addressed, for example, for some reason the parent is unable to provide information or is unwilling to provide information, that needs to be addressed on this application. Parents, when you log in, you'll be providing your identifying information. Maybe one or two of you actually logging in. Keep that in mind. As I said before, when you get to the income section, you will need to provide consent to transfer the federal tax information onto your student's FAFSA. Now, there are some areas or some items that you'll have to enter manually. The tax status, adjusted gross income, tax paid, and other items will be transferred manually or automatically from the IRS. You'll need to manually enter asset items such as how much you have in savings and checking, how much you have in certain investments, or if you own a business, you need to report the net value of that business when you get to that section. Also, if you, the parent, or one of the parents receive child support, that will be included as an asset in the asset section. So be prepared for that. Once you, the student, and you, the parent, have signed in, provided consent, and submitted your respective information, this is what you're going to shoot for. the FAFSA submission summary indicating that your FAFSA has been processed and the information has been sent to the college or colleges that you listed on the application. On that summary, it'll also give you an estimate of how much you might qualify for from the federal Pell Grant and also federal direct loans or even work study. That information is going to be forwarded to your home state, New Jersey, and also to the college or colleges that you listed on the FAFSA. You can actually list up to 20 colleges and universities to which you want to send the information. And students, no, you don't necessarily have to be accepted to a particular college in order to list it on the FAFSA. So if you're applying, example, to Rutgers, but you haven't received an offer of admission yet, you can list Rutgers. And when Rutgers receives the information, your information will be in suspense until you've been offered admission or you accept admission. At that point, they'll have the FAFSA data and they'll be able to proceed and determine your eligibility from there. So keep that in mind. For New Jersey residents, after you've completed the FAFSA, the information, as I said, goes to the state of New Jersey. You, the student, will be asked to create a separate account from the federal government at njfams.hisa.org. That's where you'll view your eligibility for tuition aid grant. You'll also see a to-do list, and if you're selected for state verification, for example, if you need to provide additional documents, it'll be available on that portal after you create that separate user ID and password. And this is just for the student, not the parent. A minute ago, I mentioned something about verification. Some students are selected for a process from the federal government or even the state government to verify the information that you report on the FAFSA is accurate, information including tax information and even family size. Now, for the most part, if you're providing consent to transfer your federal tax information onto the FAFSA, that part has already been verified. You may need to provide something else to the college or their third-party servicer, such as completing a form listing your family members to make sure that the number on the form list matches the number that you reported on the FAFSA. Or you may need to verify something else, such as citizenship. So from this point forward, if there are any students on the call or parents, pass this on to your student. All email correspondence from the colleges, from Department of Education, the state of New Jersey, they're going to be addressed to the student, not to the parents of, but to the student. Now, at the college level, you may also be asked to sign a FERPA release once a student is enrolled at college, but that's a separate discussion. For financial aid purposes, everything is going to be directed to the student. So make sure that your student reads all their information and responds in a timely manner. By not responding or delaying the process, it could delay the process and also risk forfeiting their federal or state grant eligibility for which they might have qualified. New Jersey Dreamers, as I said before, you wouldn't complete the FAFSA, but you would complete the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid application. To qualify as a New Jersey Dreamer for state grant purposes, the student will have to have attended at least 3 years and graduated from a New Jersey high school and meet other requirements for state aid. The application, the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid application, is available again at njfams.hisa.org. And that user ID or password I mentioned you have to create, that's where you go to complete it. For everybody, this is a screenshot of what you can expect to see when you go to hisa.org or njfams.hisa.org to create a user ID and password, or to log in general, to check your state grant eligibility, or to follow up with any additional documents that you have to provide. Here's another screenshot of the to-do list of anything that you, the student, would need to provide in order for the state of New Jersey to determine your eligibility for for state assistance. So make sure you, the student, are reading everything carefully If you receive anything from HESAA, that's not spam. That's coming from the state of New Jersey, and that's determining your state aid eligibility. So please do not ignore it, or check your spam box periodically. Maybe take a deep breath. So we've spoken about aid programs and the application process. I want to spend a few minutes talking about the cost of attendance. Earlier, I mentioned net price calculator, which gives part of your cost of attendance, tuition, room and board. That's only part of the story. Students, parents, make sure that every year that you're budgeting for an entire year or at least a semester, at the very least, colleges will construct a standard budget or cost of attendance based upon the average tuition and fees and housing costs for students at their institution. Now, the cost of attendance, in addition to tuition, room and board, tuition, housing, and food, would include a budget for books and supplies. Those can be quite expensive. Transportation, coming back and forth, whether you're living on campus or if you're commuting daily to the campus. For any expenses related to your education, miscellaneous, any loan fees. At some point, if you, the student, decide to study abroad one semester or enroll in a co-op or residency program during your junior, senior year, probably, you need to incorporate those costs into your cost of attendance. If any student has a disability and there are expenses such as transportation or otherwise related to your ability to pursue a higher education, make sure that you contact your financial aid office so that those additional costs are factored into your cost of attendance when you're constructing your package for each year. Earlier, I spoke about the SAI, or the Student Aid Index, which is what colleges use to determine eligibility for need-based assistance. And also, that's what colleges use to determine federal Pell Grant eligibility. Generally, after you complete the FAFSA or make corrections, you'll know right off the bat whether or not you qualify for a Pell Grant and approximately how much you qualify for based upon your financial need. Not every student or every family is going to fall into the same category. If there are two families of equal wealth or equal incomes, it's quite conceivable that one family may qualify for more need-based assistance than another. But wait, if they're equal, why are we getting more? Because one of the factors when the federal government and the state government formalizes everything or develops a formula, it's based on not only income, but also the number of persons in the household and some degree assets. So that can be a consideration. That's why in this example, we're giving the Jones and the Smiths have identical incomes, but different family sizes. That's why they have different Pell Grant eligibilities. Because even though they have more income, one family has higher need because they have more, well, in this case, more mouths to feed. The SAI is universal, no matter what type of institution you attend. That being said, your eligibility for need-based assistance may vary depending upon what type of institution that you attend for a particular year, a particular semester. For example, at a community college where tuition fees are generally much lower than at a four-year public institution, this family, I believe the Smiths, may not qualify for any need-based assistance. They might be offered an unsubsidized loan, but no Pell Grants and no subsidized loans. On the other hand, a family with the same SAI, but they attend a public four-year institution where the price tag is a little higher for tuition and fees, they may actually have unmet need that they did not have at the community college level because of the higher costs. Same thing if they're attending a private institution as opposed to a four-year public institution where the tuition price tag is slightly higher than that. Now, that's not to say that the more an institution costs, the more unaffordable it is, because remember, depending upon the institution and what they have, they may be able to to level the amount to make your tuition fees or your contributions equivalent to what it might be at a four-year institution. As I mentioned before, the FAFSA will be available for 25-26 starting December 1st of this year. That's for current seniors. So for current juniors, all these states that I'm giving you now, just advance everything by 1 year. So for the 2026-27 school year, mark your calendars for October 1st, 2025, or maybe even December 1st, 2025, to complete the 26-27 FAFSA for your students' freshman year being fall of 2026. After the student completes the FAFSA and they've been admitted to a college or university, that's when the colleges start sending out aid offers, which will outline your eligibility for federal, state, and institutional assistance, whatever the school is aware of. That usually comes out early in the calendar year after you file the FAFSA, or definitely after you've been admitted to the college or university. Starting in June or July, hopefully you've been admitted, you've made your decision, and you received an aid offer. That's when you receive your bill from the bursar's office or the student accounting office, whatever the school calls it. It'll have a summary of your tuition, room, and board for that particular semester, fall semester. And if you qualify for any financial aid, need-based or non-need-based, that will be subtracted from your direct costs. And then if there is still a balance, then you, the student, yes, the student, would need to make arrangements to finance that balance. So families, if there is a balance after you've received financial aid and you're unable to pay it within one semester, most, if not all, colleges have a payment plan option for which you can enroll at a nominal fee, usually about $40, where you can pay the student's unpaid balance in installments of 3 to 5 months for a particular semester. That'll be around June, July, or even August. Well, August is when bills are due, and then the semester begins in August or September. I think we're almost done. No, we're not, but just a few things to keep in mind. Remember, mark your calendar December 1st for any seniors to complete the FAFSA for 25-26 when it becomes available. Make sure if your school requires you to complete the CSS profile, that you do that as well. Make sure that the student, are adhering to any deadlines from the federal government, the state government, and also from your particular college or university regarding financial aid. You can still share the information with your parents, but all the information is going to you, the student. And again, as a reminder for juniors on the call, your senior year is just around the corner, and then so is your college year. So do not procrastinate. Make sure a year from now that you're getting ready to complete the 26-27 FAFSA when the time comes.
Mr. Wilson, this might be a good place to break it up a little bit. I'll throw a question at that was posted initially earlier on in the presentation. I know that the counselors spoke to this a bit last week during their presentation about the college application process as it relates to early decision. However, with the fact that many schools were giving their early decision responses in December and January, even though the FAFSA won't be able to be submitted until December, how do you advise the students on the call that might be getting decisions back, early decision back, around the same time that they'll just be submitting the FAFSA? How do the colleges look at that, and do you have any insight in that from your where you sit?
Yeah, we did have some insight this first year of the new FAFSA because of the delay. I'm not certain about early decisions, but definitely National Decision Day was actually pushed back from May 1st to June 1st in many cases. Best thing to do is check with that individual college or university. I mean, in general, I mean, you need to work out the finances, but if a college is offering you admission to their institution and they have a program that you, the student, are interested in, definitely need to consider it and then follow up once the FAFSA is available. I
But
wouldn't,
schools, it's safe to say schools know that, with the FAFSA being delayed again this year, that they're going to, students are going to have that information before they can make an informed decision on whether they can afford the school. I know for early decision, there is an element of that where they speak to the commitment piece. If they accept the offer and they have to rescind their applications to other schools, or not apply to other schools, depending on that. But I do know that, it's a bit, it's been the last 2 years a bit stressful for students and families having to make these decisions with delays with getting back, or colleges being able to process their financial aid information.
yeah, and that was a common concern among families during our spring open house and scholarship reception events this past year. Um, Students were admitted; they had no idea what their financing was going to be from need-based assistance. The only thing we could do is encourage FAFSA filing and tell them about the programs for which they might be eligible, and also refer them to the calculators for a guesstimate of their eligibility. I mean, it's not the actual amount, but it's and colleges are taking that into consideration as they're planning these events and as they're aware of the FAFSA environment.
That's a great reminder, though. The calculator, at least to get an estimate, to get an idea, that would be helpful to families. So, Joe, I'm not sure if you hit on that or you already hit on that, but just having the resource for that. I know a lot of colleges have that posted links in their own financial aid postings on their individual college websites, but
Yeah,
that's an important resource as well.
gotcha. All right. Any other questions?
I'll save the rest for at the end here.
All right. I mentioned before, aid offers. This may be one format that you'll see from the particular college. This is the state of New Jersey version. There's also a federal shopping sheet or college financing plan, which has actually a similar format to this, which separates your direct costs, the student's direct costs from whatever they qualify for from grants and scholarships to come up with the net price. Again, you have the net price calculator, students and parents, that you can start calculating and guesstimating your eligibility now. But once the school has your actual FAFSA data, it'll actually be summarized on a sheet like this, very similar to this. And if there is a gap, there will be other options on the state shopping sheet or the federal shopping sheet telling you about your options for work study or even federal loans if you choose to do so. I mentioned before scholarships that are available from the colleges and universities, and also within your own backyard. If you're part of any civic organization, Elks Club, or whatever, look into those opportunities that are available to you or any church. Every dollar helps. Once you're the student or in college, as I mentioned before, there are job opportunities through work study or other employment programs. Another employment program where you wouldn't receive a paycheck per se is something called the Resident Assistance Program, or RA. If if you live on campus in a residence hall, there are individuals called RAs who assist students um, acclimate to the college experience and answer any questions they have regarding um, academic assistance or residence life. And they're located in basically every building. As compensation for being an RA, they will receive a stipend for their room and board, or the housing and meals, I should say. So that's something you, the student, might want to look into in your sophomore or subsequent year if your school has RA opportunities. I also mentioned before um, co-ops or internships in a future semester, your sophomore, junior, or even senior year. Make sure you include those costs into to your budget or your cost of attendance. Now, for scholarship searches, check with the college or university. You can also go old school, go to the local library, check with your high school. They also have resources as far as what's available from various scholarship agencies. And something that was not available to myself or probably to many parents when we were in high school, the World Wide Web. There's so many opportunities from the state and companies such as fastweb.com where students can literally just provide information and receive information, not scholarships, but information about scholarships for which they may qualify and they can apply. So that being said, students and parents, as you're navigating all these sites, be wary. If you receive any unsolicited phone calls, emails from individuals or agencies offering to find financial assistance and they charge you a small fee, or if they ask for um, your bank PIN or your routing number or anything of that nature, that should be a red flag. Most legitimate scholarship agencies are not going to charge you a fee. Again, the only exception would be the CSS profile through the College Board. And something that many of your parents may have already invested in some 16, 17 years ago, college savings once your child was born or adopted. Um, the NJ Best program, if you've invested in the program here in the state of New Jersey, hopefully you've invested wisely and that money has grown exponentially. In addition to that funding from the savings plan, the student may also qualify for a scholarship one time for between $2,000 and $6,000 per year. So you should look into that as you're investing or go directly to HESA's website for more information regarding NJ Best. If you know of somebody who's about to become a parent or has a young child, um, it will behoove them to invest in their child's education at this point. It's well worth the investment. In addition to the FAFSA being available, there are resources to help families to complete the FAFSA. In case you have any questions, colleges and universities, they may have FAFSA workshops virtually or on campus. The state of New Jersey, they have webinars throughout the year after the FAFSA becomes available. So again, check HESA's website for any dates. Now, the webinars for HESA are available both in English and in Spanish. So check that website periodically and also check the college's website periodically. And there are publications available from the state of New Jersey for information regarding NJ class, regarding TAG, CCOG, Garden State Guarantee, and the other state programs that I mentioned, and some more that may be available that I didn't mention. So remember, if you remember nothing else, remember these two websites, studentaid.gov and HESA.org for New Jersey residents. For any questions regarding state aid or the financial aid process, we encourage you, the parent, or you, the student, to contact HESA's customer care service during weekdays and also go onto their website for more information regarding the state programs. They can also answer questions regarding federal aid to some degree. And that concludes the presentation. We'll open the floodgate to any questions or comments that families may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I know it's a lot of information while we're waiting for questions to come in, but it's immensely valuable. As I mentioned, I hear it every year, and I always pick up something new, a new tip, especially a father of three myself. Definitely can pick up some tips along the way here. Um, as I mentioned, for this portion going forward, if there are questions that come in that are anybody's looking to ask that may be more individualized, we could always follow up with you. But if you do have something for the general good, we can certainly answer it now. We did answer any of the questions that were already in the chat. There was one most recent question about how to create the FSA ID. I'm not sure if you have any specific tips on that, Mr. Wilson, but I did found a resource that was posted on studentaid.gov that I shared for anybody who has questions about how to create an FSA ID. Any challenges with that you've encountered over the years?
No. Well, again, the biggest challenge this past year has been parents without social security numbers. At the beginning of the FAFSA process, if you recall, about a year ago, um, we were ensured pretty much that it would be a seamless process for those families, but there were a few hiccups along the way. But for the most part, I believe the processor has fixed that issue. So the resource that you provided should be sufficient. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward creating an FSA ID, whether or not you have a social security number. And again, the student does have to have a social security number in order to apply for an FSA ID.
And I know there are alternative forms for the state of New Jersey for those students that do not have that information, right? There is a way to apply still to the Dreams Act and some other ways on the state websites that you
Correct.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, the New Jersey alternative application for New
Yep.
Jersey Dreamers.
Yep. All right. And
Um,
definitely we have again we have these links as part of our packets and information that we post as well, but it'll be great for anybody who needs this information. Anything posted, these links, we'll make sure we post both the actual PowerPoint so that those hyperlinks are active as well as the recording. All right. So thank you for your time. I know that the school counselors are on the call here as well. And again, last week they had a chance to go over the college process. Just a general reminder for any student who's on here who is class of 2025 or parent, we do ask that you reach out and schedule a meeting with your child's counselor at least 2 weeks before any application deadlines to make sure that they have everything needed to make sure they can help you with the submission and finalize to get them out by your child's deadlines for college. Hopefully, there's also a number of parents and students on the call here for the class of 26 and possibly even younger, because again, it's good information to hear so that when you're ready for the process, you can hit the ground running. Hopefully next year, the FAFSA will be ready for the traditional October 1 deadline, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on that, Mr. Wilson, right?
yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, December 1st is the start where the FAFSA will be open, and I do have Mr. Wilson's contact. If you're open to any follow-up individual questions that we may get over the next couple of days, would you be open to that?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody, and thanks again, Mr. Wilson and the counselors for being on the call, and for all the parents to take the time to be here tonight. Hopefully, you found it valuable.
Okay.
Have a good night,
Have a good
everybody.
evening.
Thank you.